Here I go. I'm going to click live.
And I'm going to now mute you, okay? I don't want to.
Yep.
Tell me when we're on.
Ready, set, go.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, everyone. My name is Diane Provito, and I am the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, and I am so pleased to welcome you to tonight's workshop, Easing the Transition Back to School. We are so excited to welcome our students back to school, and we can't wait to see them all, whether we're seeing them in person or virtually. We have worked so hard to prepare for this return, with hundreds of individuals participating in the superintendent's task force for developing our reopening plans. Our task force consisted of several subcommittees, each focusing on a specific area, including our Social, Emotional, Health, and Wellness Subcommittee. This group developed a number of action items to support the fall reopening in terms of the health and wellness of our Oceanside School District family. We went through so much as a community during this pandemic, and we recognize that now more than ever, for our students, families, and staff, emotional health is primary. To that end, I am joined by a panel of experts of Oceanside School District faculty who have put together one of several workshops we hope to offer families this year as part of our Parent University offerings. This workshop will provide strategies and tips and resources for easing your child's return to school under very different circumstances than any of us have ever experienced before. I'm really honored to introduce to you my colleagues and tonight's presenters, beginning with Dr. Lori Borelli, the School 4 psychologist.
Good evening, everybody.
Olivia Caridi, School 3 social worker.
Good evening, everyone.
Samantha Gennati, our Elementary and Health and Wellness facilitator.
Hi, everyone. So happy to be here with all of you.
And finally, Greer Sloven, our School 6 social worker.
Good evening, everyone.
So parents, families, we are going to start the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to our panel of experts. Please note that on the bottom of the screen, there is an area for you to write questions, which I will be monitoring. And we hope to be able to answer a few of those questions at the end of the presentation. And now I turn it over to my esteemed colleagues.
Thank you, Mrs. Provito. Good evening, Oceanside families. We're here today to provide some guidance as both you and your children transition back to school during these unprecedented times. What we are presenting today is an overview of information that pertains to many children and families. If you have specific concerns, we suggest that you contact your child's mental health support staff in their building by reaching out to either the school psychologist, social worker, health and wellness teacher, the building principal, or your child's classroom teacher who can guide you to the appropriate resource. This evening, we'll be answering questions you posted that are about this presentation. If you have any questions that are about other aspects of returning to school or that are specific to your child, we suggest that you also contact your child's school staff. Today, we are talking about I'm not sure why it went small. I'm not sure what you guys are seeing. Hang on. Sorry. There we go. I apologize. So today we are talking about expectations for returning to school. We're talking about routines that are important for learning both in school and remotely, and about emotional regulation that could be self-care for adults and for children. And then we'll present you with some resources. So what to expect? When a person is feeling on the inside can look different from what you might see of them on the outside. For example, anxiety in one child can be expressed through a lot of questioning or talking, while another child might withdraw or shut down, and a third could be weepy or sad. It is important to remember that your children will experience a lot of feelings about returning to school, both positive and negative. Just listen and provide space for them to have their feelings. You can acknowledge what they tell you by repeating back what they say and being sure not to pass judgment. Children can be excited, anxious, worried, fearful. They might talk about not being ready for school or talk about physical complaints or their own health and safety. By listening to your children, you're helping your child recognize that they have feelings about going back to school, and that's the first step in helping them learn how to manage how they feel.
Okay. So since we are in a world of, that's really full of uncertainty and unpredictability, it is important that we set ourselves up and our children up for success. So like Lori had just mentioned, we are expecting students to enter school this year with more concerns, a little bit more worry, and definitely more anxious than we're used to. We are used to those first day jitters, but with a lot of differences that might be happening this school year, we are prepared and ready to experience these feelings with these children. And this is why it's so imperative that we set a routine within the school building. And not just within the school building, but also continuing that routine at home, either from the start of the school day if your child is going remote, or even after school if they are presently in school. And this will hopefully help to ease your child into this new school year. And I think for routines, this is especially important for some parents that are on here that are having their child experience remote learning for the start of the school year. Setting routines that helps promote not only productivity, but accountability, predictability. So maybe that fear of the unknown, setting these routines will help lessen that fear. And most importantly, it truly helps to set structure. And that is what we try to do at school and what we will be doing this year. But it's also really important to set that at home. And that will really truly help not just you, but your children to really maintain their own mental health and well-being. So no matter where your child's classroom is at the start of this year, we want to make sure those routines are set so they can get comfortable quicker. And breaks for those that are doing remote learning, we find that to be very helpful. There will be some natural routine depending on when they're doing their Google Meets or when they have their classes, but it is so important to help prevent screen fatigue. And with that, setting in a routine of having those breaks will be important as well, because for those children that are in school, they will have those breaks set in for them. And trying to keep a wake-up time and a breakfast time starts the day off in an appropriate manner, gets them ready to go, knows what they're ready to expect, and lets them know how they're going to set that for the day. And if they're going to be using electronics, maybe give them a little bit of a warning before it's time to shut them off. We do know there's going to be a little bit of a challenge with easing in and out of electronics because we are using them more now, but just keeping that wake up time consistent is so important, especially for our children that are going to be in the virtual school of excellence. So making sure they are up, they are ready to go, and making sure that is keeping consistent throughout, especially Monday through Friday. And if your child is doing remote learning, it is so important that they find a workspace and have a place to do their work at home. And truly, I think it's important even for parents who are sending their kids to school. Why not set a workplace at home? Because we really want to start this transition of, we want to prepare just in case we do have to all go remote, which of course we're hoping doesn't happen, but it's something we do want to prepare for. I think every child should have a workspace at home. That way, that transition, I like to tell students the vibe that workspace will give will allow for them to know that they are to be productive there. They're accountable to get work done there. So that will be important, I think, if your child is remote or if your child is coming to school. And consistency is key, whether it's drop off and pick up or it's wake up and bedtime. We want to make sure consistency is happening throughout as much as possible, because that helps to maintain that success of that routine. Okay. On to the next. Okay, strategies for starting the year in masks. I will be the first one to say this is one of my biggest challenges. It has been, and I think many can agree with me. However, I will say that I have been wearing one now over the summer. I have been working, and I have built a resiliency to it. I have built a comfortability with it. And that's really what we want to do to help support our children this year that will be wearing masks in school. So first, consistency. I said this before, consistency at home and at school is so important in building their success. So we want to make sure that as teachers and as parents that we become mask role models for the students, for your children at home. Because the way we view masks and the way we speak about masks, keeping that conversation positive, encouraging around masks is so important, because we will not only be building their resiliency with it, we'll be building their acceptance. And as hard as this is to accept, and I am so with you, keeping a positive mindset is going to be really, really important, and building that mask stamina. One of the things that I love, which is the next bullet point, that is a superhero association. So I think this is really fun at an elementary level, because it really puts into perspective that we are wearing these masks for the greater good. And that is true. We are wearing them to not only keep ourselves safe, but to keep the people around us safe, and to keep our community safe and our community thriving, which is really what we want to happen from September on moving forward. So just reminding them that wearing a mask allows them to show kindness to others. Wearing a mask allows them to show empathy to others. And, you know, they really have the power to do good by wearing a mask, and they're really keeping everyone safe. So that's one of, I really like that association. The next thing is morning meeting questions and discussions. We put this under strategies for masks. However, I just want to encourage this to happen any morning that you're with them, and really to discuss anything. The more open you are at home about having those discussions, whether it's mom, dad, I'm uncomfortable with the mask, I'm not sure what to do, they can feel open in having that conversation with you. And then you can always have that conversation with us. So those questions and discussions can happen in the morning, get them ready for the day. And it creates an open and safe space for communication. So whether you're discussing masks or discussing anything else, a morning meeting is a great kind of check-in. And Olivia will go into that more with our mood meter. Theme week, I'm all about, I love dressing up, love a theme week. So why not have our kids get involved the same way? I know I have a mask that matches about every outfit between next Tuesday and the following 2 weeks. And I can't wait to wear that. So we could get our kids excited about wearing masks too. So whether it's tie-dye week or rainbow week, or let's find a mask that matches this awesome outfit you have. Let's show a hobby. We love sports. Let's get some Mets or some Islanders, or whatever you prefer, but it just makes it a little bit more fun. And then lastly, plan ahead a way to smile. And I put that in quotes because for those of you that know me, I smile often, and I thought I could smile with my eyes, but there's a lot of times that you don't get that recognition that you normally would from a smile. I want to write on my mask, sometimes I am smiling at you, I promise. But just finding a way and discussing an alternative. So, I know for me, I'm going to play around with a fist pump, a dab, a big, big wave, maybe a hug to myself, hugging them, because we have to stay socially distant. I'm sure I will be laughed at along the way, but it's a good thing to discuss with the kids just so they're ready to go. But overall, starting the year in masks will be challenging, and no one is denying that, but we are here to support you, and hopefully these strategies can help ease that transition. Okay, last slide for me. So setting intentions for the day. I know when we were remote, one of the biggest things that I struggled with was feeling a lack of purpose. Getting up, getting in my car, going to work was something maybe a lot of us can agree that we took advantage of. And I know that set me up for the day. So setting intentions is something that allowed me to build that intrinsic motivation back, and allowed me to feel good about what I was doing. And I think it's a great conversation starter. So going back to that morning meeting, having those discussions about what do you want to accomplish for today? What are you looking forward to? Is there something that's concerning you? Well, you know what? If that's concerning you, let's make a goal for today, and we can discuss it later on. And I'm going to switch gears and talk about parents, self-care. That is just as important as well. And in order for us to, really take care of our loved ones, we need to be our best selves. So sometimes setting intentions for ourselves writing them down in a journal. I know we don't really get a lot of time during the day, but writing down maybe something each night that you're grateful for, or something that you're really proud of that you did. Or my favorite is something that you are forgiving yourself for today, because no one is going to do this year perfect. We are also new at this. So setting intentions, allowing yourself to forgive yourself for the things that may not have went the way you planned, and reminding ourselves what we're grateful for can help build that positivity around us getting back into this school year. So thank you for your time. Olivia, I think you're up next.
Thank you, Ms. Gennady. So the mood meter is one of our ruler anchor tools that we use to identify our feelings throughout all of our buildings. And as you can see, there are 4 colors on the mood meter. And if you notice, there are words such as energy and feelings, energy meaning low to high energy, and feelings, unpleasant to pleasant feelings. And this is really how we determine, especially with the students, where we're going to check in or fall on the mood meter. So each color represents different feelings. For example, a child who is feeling angry or mad would check in the red. A child who is feeling blue or some form of blue feeling is most likely feeling sadness on some level. A child who comes into school feeling really, really tired or just so calm, as they like to say, they love that word, they would be checking in the green. And a child who is feeling excited or happy about all the things that they want to share with their class would be checking in the yellow. So many children begin their day in school with what we actually call a morning meeting, where they check in with the mood meter. It's one of the first things that they do after they unpack for the day. And they label their feelings. So they put a word to the feeling and they share with their classmates and their teacher. And this daily check-in is truly essential for students because we know that they really can't learn if they're not emotionally available to learn. And I just think even if I come into work, I need that time to kind of decompress when I come in. I always come into work a little bit early because if there's traffic or something going on, I know that I'm not 100% ready for the students the way that I would feel comfortable being. When we learn to identify how we feel, we can understand how we can cope with our negative feelings better. It's really just important to teach and validate with the kids that all feelings are okay. And as Ms. Gennady shared, consistency is so imperative. One suggestion that we have is to have your child or children make their own mood meter for the house. This would build an even stronger homeschool connection that really promotes the social and emotional well-being. The students come to me all the time to share their mood meters that they've made, that whether they hung them up on the fridge or in their rooms, they get so excited to share. So I really actually suggest that you make it almost like a mini homework assignment, because I actually think that they would light up and be so happy about that. So identifying your feelings and being aware of how you're feeling, it's so important. And this quote really speaks volumes to identifying your emotions and actually bringing us into the next ruler anchor that I'm going to talk about. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response, our growth and our freedom. So just think about how many times you've acted before taking a moment to stop, think, and breathe. If we just took that brief moment to count to 10, close our eyes, walk away, think about how our day could just change for the better. That moment could really make all the difference. That space really, really allows for us to be in the moment and to assess our feelings and our problems. As I say to our students all the time, is this a big problem or is this a little problem? How can we solve this? So another anchor tool that we really use throughout our buildings is actually called the meta moment, which is that space that we're referring to. The meta moment is one of the anchor tools that I actually find myself using all the time. It's a tool that can be used to help not only children, but yourself to regulate during a time when you're feeling stressed, angry, or worried. When we take a meta moment, we're simply stopping and thinking before we choose to act. We ask ourselves, how would my best self handle this situation? What strategy would my best self use? And that is a phrase that I use with our students all the time. If there's a situation that we have to handle, I'll ask them, how do you see your best self handling this situation? What does that look like? Tell me about it. Close your eyes and picture your best self in that moment. That's what I want you to do moving forward. So really just being reflective and moving forward to make better decisions when you're feeling a negative emotion, as we all feel. So really using that space and taking that space for yourself is important, especially as parents too. We know that not only for our children, but these are tools that you can use as parents, but also with your children during your own morning meetings, as Ms. Giannotti was sharing also. But please, we can't stress this enough. If there's anything that you need, even just an uneasy situation that you want to discuss or just nerves that you want to get off your chest, please do not hesitate to utilize the support staff in your buildings. We're truly here to help, and we are team players, and we just want you to know that we really are in this together.
Thanks, Olivia. Hi, everyone. I am going to be talking about emotional regulation, which I feel is such an important topic, especially now with all of the challenges and uncertainties that we have faced over the past 6 months and all that lies ahead. Each of us has been affected by this pandemic in different ways, whether you have experienced the loss of a loved one, financial hardships, the feeling of isolation, anxiety, stress, and depression. We are all in this together, and you are not alone in what you're feeling. I think that it's safe to say that we have experienced and continue to experience a roller coaster of emotions, which is why emotional regulation is such an important tool. Emotional regulation is our ability to experience a wide variety of emotions and being able to monitor, manage, and express those feelings in socially appropriate ways. So I'm going to share some strategies that will be helpful for you and your children. It was important for us to talk about strategies to help parents as well, because in order to help our children, we must first help ourselves. I know for myself and for many, parenting is probably one of the most challenging jobs there is. As a parent, I learn a lot about myself every day, and I've also learned that my kids are my teachers. As parents, we have the important role in our child's life to model positive behaviors. They learn from us and feed off our energy every step of the way. They hear us when we're talking, they listen to how we respond in situations, and they watch our every move. When we as parents are able to regulate our emotions and are able to respond to the different feelings that we have in appropriate ways, we're able to make decisions and problem solve, and we're able, our children are learning from us. They're seeing this, and we are able to also, then have positive, healthy relationships with others. So of course, there are times though that we're not always our best selves, and that's when we're emotionally dysregulated. We may act out, react impulsively or irrationally, and this can affect our relationships with others. But it's normal to have moments like this. We're human, and we're meant to feel a lot of different emotions, but we have to learn from those experiences and learn better ways to express ourselves. And we have to learn to find that space in between our reactions and instead respond to situations. Some of us have that innate ability to regulate our emotions, and others have to work harder at it. So here are some strategies that we feel will be very helpful for you and your children. The first and most important is normalizing emotions, talking about feelings. Create a space, a safe space for your children. We want our children to be able to come to us to talk about what's going on in their lives. So if we provide them a safe space, non-judgmental, they're going to invalidate their feelings and help them to express their feelings. They're going to come to us. For some kids, that's really hard for them to do. Especially with kids with ADHD and anxiety, it's hard for them to regulate their emotions. Sometimes it's hard for them to take that moment to respond to a situation as opposed to react. So it's really important to help them to use iMessages to express their emotions, helping them to say, I feel sad, I feel angry. And after they're able to identify and label how they're feeling, then they can work on talking out their problems. I feel sad because this happens. We want them to be able to talk out problems. And for ourselves as adults, again, we want to recognize our own emotions. We want to pay attention to what we're feeling, being mindful. I've done a lot of work with mindfulness, and it's not just the practice of meditating, it's being mindful in all aspects of our lives, whether it's mindful communication or listening or being mindful of the physical sensations you have in your body. It's so much more, and it's really actually been such a helpful tool for me, because when I'm able to feel that emotion, I'm able to make that mind-body connection. So I start to feel my physical feelings. I feel like if I get angry, I feel myself clenching my fist, or I feel my heart beat. And those are like things that you have to pay attention to, because when you can pay attention and start to feel the emotion coming, you're able sometimes to make a choice and not react. You're able to respond to the situation. So being able to talk about feelings openly with your kids, we don't want to push those feelings aside. We want children to be open and honest about their feelings. So labeling and identifying emotions is so important. For parents, as we discussed, modeling those positive strategies and self-regulation when we're feeling strong emotions. You know, as I said, we're human. We're going to feel these strong emotions. We're going to feel angry. We're going to feel sad. That's part of life. So we want to teach our kids that sometimes we have to walk away. We need to take time for ourselves. We have to cool off and calm down, deep breathing as well. You know, a lot of those strategies, they work not when we've like blown our lid and we're already so angry. They work when we can catch it before we get to that point. So it's really important that when we're using these strategies, we want to try to just pay attention to the way we're feeling so that we can make those choices. So when our child, I'm going to kind of go back to the strategies for children. A lot of our children are going to feel anxiety and worry and fear. And a lot of that is the fear of the unknown. It's also just anticipating the start of school and not knowing what to expect. So it's really important to provide clear information so your child knows what to expect when they go back to school. The video that the district put out, which was fabulous, is a really great way to talk about what to expect when you're going back to school. Watch that video with your children and talk about feelings as they arise. And that will be really a good way to kind of open the lines of communication. If you find that your child is talking more about their anxieties and their fears more than normal, or it's impacting their functioning, it's good to establish what I call a worry time or create a worry jar. I did this with my own daughter when she was experiencing some anxiety. And basically we would create a time during the day where we would have worry time. And during that time, we would talk about some of her anxieties and her fears. If she brought up a fear and it wasn't worry time, we would write it down and put it in the worry jar. And this is a good way to just kind of shift your child's thinking. That worry is going to be there, but we're going to just put it aside for now, and we're going to talk about it at worry time. So it's just limiting the discussion around anxiety because we don't want to feed into our child's anxiety. Drawing is a great tool to use for emotional regulation, especially for the little ones. It's such a great expression of ways to express their feelings. Journaling is wonderful as well. I remember all my journals in my teenage years. It's got me through a lot of tough times. And then, of course, your hobbies. We don't want to forget about all the hobbies that our children have, and we want to help them to get outside and to just have fun. Mindfulness, as I discussed, is something that I feel very passionately about. It's such a great tool for children, and studies have shown that mindfulness improves attention, awareness, and emotional and self-regulation. Take 5 is something that some of you may know if your child has been through the kindergarten center over the past few years. I learned this at a training with Corey Muscara, and he taught me Take 5, which is simply a very simple breathing strategy. When you go up your thumb, you breathe in. When you go down your thumb, you breathe out. up your pointer, breathe in, breathe out. And I have always heard parents will call me and tell me that their child is teaching them and telling them that they need to take 5. So I always love when I hear that the kids are going home and teaching their kids these strategies. The Calm app and Insight Timer are great apps to use for guided meditations. There's yoga videos on YouTube. And of course, my favorite, making glitter jars with your kids is a great activity and a good strategy for them to use when they're feeling overwhelmed or anxious. Positive self-talk for children and adults is a great strategy, helping kids to get themselves through situations by using saying things in their minds like, I'm okay, I'll get through this, I got this, is always, really important for children. And, even creating like a mantra or something with you as a parent that they can say, if they're having difficulty with separation, that's always a wonderful strategy. And then the last one, a calm down box, is something that I talk a lot with parents about. If your child's feeling angry or even has a lot of energy and needs to kind of calm down, it's a great tool for you to create a box that has coloring pages or maybe squishy toys, maybe if you use essential oils, something to relax them and calm down if they're having a moment. I always tell kids that it's important to kind of be by yourself when you're having a moment. We don't want to take our anger out on all of the people we love and care for, so we want to be alone with our anger. So it's important when they use that strategy of, I feel angry, okay, let's go to a special place and use our calm down box. For parents, self-care, as we've spoken about, is so important. Mindfulness, exercising, hobbies, finding things that you enjoy doing. Don't forget about taking care of yourself, journaling, listening to music, getting sleep. These are all really important. Also, knowing when to seek help. A lot of times people think of getting help from a therapist or a psychiatrist as a weakness. And in my mind, it's a sign of strength. Being able to know that you can't do something on your own, and that you need support is really important. And being able to seek out that support is really something that I think that we need to be able to do and feel okay with. I know for my own child, when I knew I couldn't help her anymore with her anxiety, I was able to get her professional help so that I could just be her parent. So that's a very important thing. And lastly, actually connecting with friends and family is so important. We don't want to lose those connections, especially, if we are home again. So it's important to connect to your Zoom meetings with friends and things like that. And lastly, creating a positive emotional climate in the home. That is so important in order for our children to be able to regulate their emotions. They need to feel safe and in an environment that makes them feel good. So next we have Mark Brackett's ruler program. We have a resource. He has some unhelpful strategies and helpful strategies. On your time, I want you to just look over the unhelpful strategies. It's common to resort to using strategies like this that are really habitual and old patterns of behavior, and to be aware of the fact that you're using those strategies, and knowing that they're not helpful and they're not serving you. It's important that awareness is key, and it's half the battle. When you know what doesn't work, you're more open to exploring strategies that do work. So, at your leisure, take some time and check those out. Some helpful strategies that weren't discussed. Positive reappraisal is a really great strategy. Sometimes seeing the silver linings in experiences with everything that's going on, sometimes finding the good and turning around situations and finding things that have benefited you. Acceptance is also really important, accepting that we can't change what's going on. We have to let go of the things that we can't control and the things that we can't change. Visualization is also a really good strategy to use. Humor is wonderful. I once learned at a training that humor soothes the amygdala, which is the part of our brain that is responsible for emotional regulation. So humor always works. There's also something called laugh therapy. It's a real thing. And then there's distraction, redirection. Sometimes that helps with our children, to just distract them and redirect them to get out of, whatever they're going through. And then lastly, we have to take action. We have to create good, healthy habits, eating, sleeping, exercise, social supports, constructive activities that we enjoy, modifying situations, and stepping away from situations that are not going to be positive for yourself or your family, kind of knowing when to say no to plans. And then problem solving, which is also really important. When we're in a good state of mind, we can problem solve, and we want to help our children to be able to solve problems. We want to help them to feel these emotions. We don't want to suppress the emotions, because it's important for children to feel these strong emotions so that they can overcome adversity. And then, of course, seeking professional help, again, is a really important strategy. Okay, so this is Mark Brackett's Big 7 emotional regulation strategies, which which is the foundation of the SEL Health and Wellness Primer that went out through the school messenger today. This primer was developed by our Health and Wellness Task Force members, and it's to serve as a resource for you and your children. It's a reminder to focus on yourself, to use these emotional regulation strategies that you've learned, and social and emotional skills to improve your overall well-being. One of the things that really, is important in all of these strategies are important, but forgiveness is one that really has helped me over the years. Being able to forgive myself when I have those moments, and having compassion for myself and loving myself, and being able to apologize, and, giving myself permission to sometimes have those moments. As I said, we're human. This is what life's all about, these experiences. So we have to be able to, forgive and move forward and be kind to ourselves. And lastly, we have some resources for you and your family. We have some mindfulness for kids, which is through Mindful Schools, a wonderful program. We have SEL at Home, which is another good website and good resource for families. The Oceanside Virtual Wellness Center is wonderful. This is something that was created through some of our faculty in the high school, and it has resources for everybody. It has some guided meditations, some drawing activities, some music and journaling. It is really wonderful. I may even go on there myself. And then we have coping skills for dealing with the coronavirus. And also, most important, you have us. We are here as resources. You have, in addition to your teachers, your child's teacher and the building principals, you have your social workers, your psychologists, and your health and wellness facilitator. And, it's important to know that we are here to guide you through this school year. Whether your child is doing remote learning or going to be in school in person, you are not in this alone, and you have a partner with us. So, thank you so much for letting us present to you tonight.
That was excellent. I can't thank the team enough and thank all the participants out there who are submitting questions. I'd like our panel to stay tuned. We're going to just share some questions that came through as you were sharing your presentation. And if you will, please pop on and respond. So one of the first questions that came out, that was posted, was asking about ways to have students form meaningful connections with their peers during remote learning. So if you can offer up some strategies there, we would appreciate it.
So one of the things that I did when we, started remote learning in the spring was I saw on Facebook that they had Messenger Kids, which is a great app that you can download on your child's electronics, and you can connect with friends that way. You can even put your child's code on their Google Classroom to connect with other kids who have the app. But I found that to be really helpful for my son, who is 8 at the time, and he was able to not only, so it's kind of like a FaceTime, but it has fun activities and games, and they love that, and it was a really nice way to connect. You also could do virtual play dates, pick a friend, do a FaceTime, pick a game to play, and just make sure that you both have the same game, and you can, do that as well. For girls, you could just play Barbies over the phone and FaceTime, if you're younger kids, like my little kindergartners. But those are some good ways to connect, doing some social distance play dates, maybe taking a walk, socially distancing. Those are some ideas that I have.
Can I add to that? I do agree that one of the things that I was going to say was take advantage of this nice weather we have now. Use that and, find ways to maybe socially distance and meet outside, get in that fresh air as much as possible. And also, I'm not sure if parents are aware, but we are going to be pushing into classrooms to discuss a lot of these topics that are unknown truly for all of us. And we thought it was so important to get your children as part of the conversation because they sometimes have better ideas than we have. So, discussing that, this is going to be one of the things that comes up, and we are going to have, they're all social, emotional based. And at least for the first couple of weeks, we will be having conversations with your children about a lot of these things. So if ideas come up through there as well, it will definitely be discussed on our end.
Thank you, Ms. Lovan and Ms. Gennady. So this question is a really good one because at the end of the day, it's been quite some time before us, since our students have been in school. And one of our participants asked, what are some strategies for managing their child's school load while they're working full-time from home as well? So if anybody could offer up some tips on that, that would be helpful.
In terms of routines, I think the beginning of the year for everyone is going to be very experimental, and we're going to learn very quickly what works and very quickly what doesn't work. But I think having that conversation with your child, especially if you're remote, knowing what their schedule is for the day, knowing what their workload is for the day, making to-do lists, having that conversation, having those check-ins. I have a work meeting today from 12 to 1:30. So from 12 to 1:30, I would like you to work on A, B, and C. And if you have questions, here's a notepad, write them down, and then we can discuss them after my meeting. So just getting into a routine and just having your children be a part of that conversation when creating that routine daily, I think will be helpful. But I think the beginning is just going to be very experimental. So like Ms. Lovan said before, forgive yourself and just take it one day at a time because it might be a little challenging at first.
I think it's also important to help our children to be independent. We don't want them to always be dependent on us to get them started and to initiate tasks. So, whatever they can do on their own, helping them to just be able to initiate that task and that work on their own, and the things that, you need to save for later, that's okay. I remember in the spring, a lot of parents didn't start their work with the kids until later, after they were done with work, so that they can really devote the time to helping them. But I think that, we want our kids to be independent learners and to be able to try doing things on their own. And I also think that, we want to get compliance. So if they only can do one thing, that's okay. Let them just do that one thing. And if they give a hard time, it's not worth the battle. Have a conversation with your child's teacher, and maybe, the next day we get 2 tasks and we can do 2 things. But I think, is have difficulty doing some of the schoolwork. Compliance is key. We don't want to overwhelm them. So, I think that's really important. It kind of just takes the pressure off you.
And to add on to what Mrs. Sullivan was saying, I think anything that you can break down into pieces is helpful. So if a child sees, whether it's a long-term assignment or even something just that day that looks like a lot of lines they have to type in if they're working remotely, or they come home with homework, and the parents are still working and it looks like a lot of lines, anything that we can teach them to, let's just take this, one step at a time. And once you do that once, hopefully they'll generalize that to the next time they have to do something similar. So rather than thinking, I have to write 3 paragraphs, as the kids get older, I have to write an entire essay. No, you have to start it. You have to maybe make a web, think about your ideas. Anything that can break it down is definitely helpful, because it is a lot for, students to either come home after the day or even to be working on that while everyone else in the home is working too.
Thank you. So the next question asks, what are some good strategies to deal with the disappointments of what is missing? Things like clubs and the social engagement.
I want to jump in on this one because I know for me personally, my summer looked very different than I thought it was going to, as I know it did for a lot of people. And I've just been saying all summer, just see the good. I know it sounds really simple, and it sounds easy. It's not, but I've been truly living by this every single day. Just see the good. So if your child comes home and is talking about, oh, my class looks so different, I didn't get to play with Johnny today. What did you get to do? Tell me about all the great things you did get to do. We can go back and we could talk about some of the things that are disappointing. I feel disappointment all the time. I think validating the feelings is really, really important. You don't want to push that aside. But I do think that it's very easy to get caught up in that web of complaining and seeing things from such a negative perspective. So I know for myself, I try to reframe everything. If I am starting to kind of go down a path of, oh, well, it should have been like this, and then I should have been doing this week. I'm like, no, what did I do this week that was awesome? And I actually try to talk myself out of it. And that's something that I've been using with children in the schools, and teachers and I, when we're having conversations, just reframing and seeing things from a different perspective. I think that that's a really great strategy, but also talking about what have you noticed that is disappointing you? What is different about school? Because that is an important conversation to have also, but I do think that something just as seeing the good, it makes a really big difference. I know that if you're promoting that in your house, I think you'll see and feel a big difference if that's the climate that is going on.
Thank you, Ms. Tweedy. So we are getting a number of questions that are really more focused on our youngest of learners, our 5-year-olds, our 6-year-olds. And to summarize a couple of the questions which have the same global component, it's really asking, how do you help a kindergartner, a younger student who really doesn't have established friend connections, make these connections and get some socialization? And it is asking while remote, but also while not in remote, and is a little bit harder for the younger students. So I don't know if you could speak to that, but that is something that seems to be on the minds of our participants.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good question, and obviously a big concern for many of our incoming kindergartners, where you're just starting to establish those friendships. They will have opportunities, even though, to play and get to know their peers in their class. They'll still have recess. And play centers will look different. It might not be, they might not be able to play together, but they are going to learn really important play skills like cooperative play and turn taking. So when this is all, done, they're going to have the skills, they're going to learn, they're just going to be doing more parallel play, which, is a skill that some of them have already learned to do. But, and it's, with remote learning, they're going to have their Google Classrooms. They are going to be able to connect that way. Through some of them will have small group learning, so they may make connections that way. The teachers are going to be able to still make learning fun. And, it's maybe even saying, was there anybody on your Google Meet today who seemed like, they could be your friends, it's saying something like that. And, then you can reach out. They're still going to have class lists where you can connect with parents. I think that that's really important and something that I'll stress, to our kindergarten teachers, but you still will be able to make the connections. It's just going to look different.
Thank you, Ms. Slovin. I think I might also we need to remind each other that we're not alone, that we're all having these feelings. So reaching out won't be as awkward because you're actually helping and reaching out to someone who's probably experiencing and worrying about the same things. We still have a couple more questions coming in, so we'll try to take one or two more before we end the evening. Very interestingly, someone had mentioned, and this goes back to a piece of what you all mentioned before about screen balance, screen time balance, and all the things that we're doing via computer. One of our participants asked, how do I get my child excited about handwriting again? Now they're returning to school to be handwriting again, where so much has already been done and has been done for so long, since March, via the computer. And that is true. Those fine motor skills might need to get back in play, and our children might also need a little encouragement. So I'm going to pause and see if you have any suggestions.
Dry erase boards are awesome. I know kids love to use dry erase boards, so I would, continue, get those if you don't already have them, and that will give kids an opportunity to use those fine motor skills and work on their letters. I think that that's always a fun tool to use.
One way that I was introducing staying in contact and keeping those connections alive when we were first remote was pen pal writing. And that's a fun way to get them with that pencil writing, but with the intention of something fun and something good. I can remember when my friends used to go to camp in the summer, I couldn't wait to get their letters. And at that point, there were cell phones and all of those things, but there was just something so special about that. So I love the dry erase idea in terms of academics, but in terms of just practicing and making it fun and light, maybe, connect them with a pen pal, say a little hello, share things. But that could be a fun way to get them to write.
I love that idea. Pen pals, so fun. Or even just writing a letter to their friends.
It's very old school, but back to the basics.
So I love that idea, by the way, as well. And I do want to say that sometimes attaching writing a letter or making a card to a kind deed really serves two purposes. There are a lot of our neighbors out there who are elderly, who are still staying home a little bit more than they normally would. And I can imagine having your third grader write a letter or a card and popping it in their mailbox. And those kinds of kind deeds, that always is an intrinsic motivation for students to do anything, or children and adults. I do also want to add one other thing, as I know there's a worry. There's a worry for our students socializing. There's a worry for how will our students learn to read if I'm in the remote school? How will I get them to get excited about handwriting again? I do want to just encourage partnership with you teachers. The teachers are very well aware of how our students are returning to something that is going to be a little unfamiliar now. Once again, it's been since March, and they are very prepared to ease our students in, to help them accustom them to the learning routines again. So do reach out to your teachers. They are a part of your circle of support, along with individuals like our support staff who are on this evening. I'm going to take one quick last look through the questions.
Mrs. Provito, I also wanted to add, we spoke a little bit about journaling. That's also another really good tool. And doing a gratitude journal is a really nice thing for parents and children, focusing on the things that they're grateful for. That's also it's a good strategy, but it also gets them writing as well.
Parents and children could do that together too, which is a lovely thing. That teacher parent partnership, or making partnerships with our children, and we journal, they journal. We take 10 minutes, write something we're grateful for, we want to share, great. If not, it can be private, but I love that idea.
Okay, we'll take two more questions. One of them I think is pretty simple. There's a question about the glitter jar. How do you make those glitter jars? Can you repeat that?
It's funny because when I made a glitter jar for every kindergarten class last year, because that's how I introduced mindfulness. And I'm going to take out my glitter jar that I already have right here. It's a nice red one. But all the kids always said, how do you make a glitter jar? So I did a screencastify last year, and I posted it in every kid's Google Classroom, and they loved it. And the goal was to make one and then send it to me. But it's really easy. You can get everything at Michael's. I got this bottle at Michael's. You get glitter glue at Michael's. They have the little mini glitter glues right in the front. So I got those. You get sparkles. And you really, all you do is you fill up the bottle with water, and then you add the glitter glue and all the sparkles. I always said to them, I added a little bit of yellow for happiness, a little red for anger that we sometimes feel, the blue for the sadness, the green for the calm that we want to bring into our lives. And then you can also get some sequins, which is really good. And then you just mix it all around, and then you fill it all the way up. And of course, the most important thing, you need to get like crazy glue to do the top so that they don't open it. And then, you just shake it up. And I always talk with the kids about how, like, the glitter, when you shake the glitter jar, it's kind of like our monkey mind with all of the thoughts that we have going on in our mind. But we can watch the glitter as it settles, and we can take deep breaths. And that's kind of like all of our thoughts kind of floating away. And as it gets to the surface, we have a nice, clear mind. So it's a really nice thing to do with the kids, and a good tool for them to use as well.
Okay, our final question of the night. I do have to say, this is the one thing that I hear from parents a lot. There's a great worry about their child perhaps not being as compliant with mask wearing, especially our younger students, as we would all like. And they've been practicing. I see in the little question boxes that parents are practicing. They're working on that mask endurance. But any other thoughts, and perhaps hearkening back to some of the things said earlier about masks? But I'll pause there. What happens if our child has a really hard time being mask compliant?
That's a good question. I think that it's important to help your child ask for help, to know that they can, raise their hands and say, I need a break. Because at any, especially for the little ones, we are blessed to have kindergarten aides that can take the student out and take a walk. But it's really important for them to be able to ask for help, so that if they are having a hard time, we can work together. And I think that's important. Raising your hand and asking for help.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, Greer. I also, in speaking with certain parents over the summer, in talking with them, just finding a mask that your child thinks is really cool It sounds simple, but it actually has helped. I know with some specific children that I'm referring to who really weren't okay with the idea of wearing a mask, and they just did not want to have to do that. But if it was like a Batman mask, they were all about it. They wanted to show their friends. I know that could also be maybe something that they want to do for a few days, and then we might be kind of back to this problem, but this is something that we can revisit. This is where we can help you. The support staff in the building is there to help you with these things if and when they come up, because we're prepared for that.
Thank you so much. So we've come to the close of our presentation. Just a few reminders. Dr. Smith was tuning in this evening, and she sent me a little message to say, please remind our families that we are partnering with the Northwell Behavioral Health again. And of course, if you need any kind of support that's personal to your family or your child, we do ask that you reach out to our wonderful team, 4 of which are here with us this evening. Don't hesitate. The school is here to support you. We care deeply about our families and our students. We know that we have been through a lot, and we know that we are aware of that, and we know that that support will be needed and necessary, and we're doing a lot of proactive things to support our community. So thank you, Dr. Smith, for that reminder. And finally, we are being asked, can copies of the presentation be emailed to the participants? What we're going to do is we're going to be posting this presentation on our website, so it'll be easily accessible to all who were here this evening, and you can spread the word. I thought there were some great tips on those slides. If anyone was unable to make it to this evening's presentation, there is a recording of it, and of course, as I mentioned, the PowerPoint slides will be posted on our website. So with that, we are just a few days away to seeing our smiling students again, whether it's virtually or in person. We are ready, we are excited, we love them, and we love our community. And the 4 professionals I am here with this evening are an example of the dedicated professionals that encompass the Oceanside School District. We are here for you, and we thank Ms. Slovin, Ms. Caridi, Ms. Giannotti, and Dr. Borelli. Thank you all, and have a wonderful evening. We can't wait to see you.